Fires and plumes of smoke as Israel strikes southern Beirut suburbs on Monday. Japan releases oil reserves to address supply concerns as U.S.-Israel war with Iran continues. Severe flooding kills 66 people in Kenya as heavy rains continue. This is the World News on AIT. I am Shola Jaisimi, and you're welcome. The Israeli military said on Monday that it struck more Hezbollah infrastructure in Beirut, that's the Lebanese capital. A powerful strike also hit Beirut's southern suburbs moments before the announcement.
Israeli military forces struck southern Beirut early Monday, targeting Hezbollah infrastructure, with powerful explosions reported in the city's southern suburbs, including Haret Hurek and Boj al-Brajneh, producing large plumes of smoke and fire visible across the skyline. The strikes follow a series of retaliatory attacks after Hezbollah fired rockets into northern Israel, escalating the ongoing conflict. The Israeli military reported hitting at least 10 Hezbollah infrastructures within 30 minutes, including the headquarters of its elite Radwan unit. The Israeli army said it had issued evacuation orders for all, wounding 26 people. Excavators in the southern suburbs of Beirut have started clearing debris after the strikes. Families have taken shelter in Beirut stadiums and schools as the effects of the U.S.-Israel's war on Iran are felt across the region.
Now, thick plumes of smoke billowed from the Dubai airport on Monday after a drone hit one of its fuel tanks. The airport has repeatedly been targeted by Iranian drones, causing interruptions to air travel. It has also been shut down for several days since the start of the war between U.S. and Israel and Iran on the 28th of February. The United Arab Emirates Defense Ministry says forces were intercepting Iranian missiles and drones on Monday morning, hours after a drone strike sparked a fire at the main airport. Emirates says in its latest update that all its flights there remain suspended until further notice. The airline says it is working with authorities to restart operations when possible, as it urged passengers not to travel to the airport. Dubai International is the world's busiest airport for international travel and a key hub linking east-west flights all around the world. United States President Donald Trump has said he did not know if he wanted to make a deal with Iran to end the ongoing war. Speaking about Air Force One, while flying back to Washington from Florida, President Trump outlined requirements for a potential deal.
It comes as President Trump demanded about 7 countries to send warships to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. His appeals have so far brought no commitments as oil prices soared during the war. Separately, Trump defended the use of a photo of a dignified transfer in fundraising. The president declined to name the countries heavily reliant on Middle East crude that the administration is negotiating with to join the coalition to police the waterway where about 1/5 of the world's traded oil normally flows. The U.S. president sidestepped questions about oil futures. He didn't directly answer whether his administration is talking about selling oil futures as a way to cap surging oil prices. Trump's Interior Secretary Dick Burgum told reporters during the weekend that the administration has talked about the strategy. Trump also said a fatal strike on school in Iran is being investigated. The deadly missile strike on an elementary school in the opening hours of the conflict killed more than 165 people, many of them children. Recent satellite images, expert analysis, and public information released by the U.S. military all suggested it was likely a U.S. strike.
The EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, said that the bloc will look into options to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. She said the EU could expand its Auspicious naval mission to protect shipping in the Red Sea up into the Persian Gulf, or they could form a coalition of the willing with member nations contributing military capacity on an ad hoc basis.
Of course, it's important that the attention on the Middle East does not take away the attention from Ukraine, that the attention does not fizzle out there. We see the easing of sanctions on oil on Russia by U.S. is a dangerous precedent, because right now we need them to have less money for waging the war than more. And of course, the Strait of Hormuz being closed is also to the benefit of Russia to fund this war. So we need to do definitely more on this.
Comes as the EU foreign affairs ministers meet in Brussels to discuss the situation in Ukraine and in the Middle East. The U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he has demanded about 7 countries send warships to keep the Strait of Hormuz open as Iranian strikes continue to rain down on Gulf countries on Monday. Iran has said the strait is open to all except the United States and its allies. The EU foreign and energy ministers are also meeting in Brussels this Monday to discuss rising energy prices. The ministers are set to meet behind closed doors to consider potential steps to ease surging prices after the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Its closure, triggered by the U.S.-Israel war with Iran, has disrupted gas shipments and severely unsettled global oil prices. Now, Japan on Monday began releasing its oil reserves, worth about 45 days to cope with supply shortages and rising prices as the war in Iran continues. Japan imports more than 90% of its crude oil from the Middle East.
Monday's release began with a 15-day worth of private sector reserves, followed by a month's worth of state-held oil, totaling about 80 million barrels, or about 1/5 of Japan's domestic oil reserves. Most of it comes through the Strait of Hormuz, and its virtual closure is expected to start impacting Japan's oil supply within weeks. Prime Minister Sanae Taikachi announced the release plan last week. Japanese government staff spokesperson Minoru Kihara also told the reporters Monday that no decision had been made to send self-defense forces. Following U.S. President Donald Trump's call for countries including Japan to send ships to help protect the Strait of Hormuz, talking at the parliament, Taikachi said her government has not heard anything from Washington. Defense Minister Shinjiro Kozumi said he has no plans to send warships to the Strait of Hormuz under the current safety conditions.
2 boats carrying 21 people capsized off a controversial relocation site for a U.S. military base off Japan's southern island of Okinawa. Officials said the accident off the Henoko in Japan threw all into the water and left 2 dead.
The Japan Coast Guard said 18 of them were students of a Kyoto High School on 2 boats, 10 on the boat Heiumaru and 8 on the smaller boat Fukutsu, to observe the Henoko area as part of their peace education program. Officials said Coast Guard rescuers pulled all 21 people out of the water, but a 17-year-old female student and the captain of Fukutsu were later pronounced dead. 2 people were injured, but their conditions are not life-threatening. Coast Guard officials said the cause of the accident is under investigation. The boats were about a kilometer east of Henoko when they capsized. A wave advisory was in place during the accident, but the water was not very rough and there was no sign the boats collided, officials said. Persistent protests and lawsuits between Okinawa and Tokyo have held up the relocation plan of the U.S. Marine Corps Air Station Futema from a crowded neighborhood on the island for nearly 30 years.
Rescued crew members from a Thai cargo ship which was struck and set ablaze near the Strait of Hormuz arrived in Bangkok from Oman on Monday. 3 crew members from the Mayayure Nari ship remain missing after the vessel was hit by a projectile just north of Oman last week. Thai officials said they are in close coordination with Iranian and Omani officials, and search and rescue efforts continue. The 20 crew members who returned to Bangkok were reported to be in good health and good spirits. After landing at the Suvayabhumi International Airport, the crew were escorted by officials to a waiting bus and did not speak to the media. A further 4 people have died in Kenya after heavy rains caused widespread flooding, taking the number to have died in the past week to at least 66. The capital, Nairobi, was hit by more heavy rain overnight, although new deaths were recorded. 11 people were rescued after a minibus taxi, known locally as Matatu, or rather Matatu, got stuck as water rose in Nairobi, while 2 children were saved from a flooded house.
According to Kenya, heavy rainfall over the past week has triggered we are continuing rains. Authorities have urged residents in low-lying areas to move to safer ground, and more than 2,000 people have had to leave their homes to seek shelter. Police say search and rescue operations are continuing following the torrential rain and subsequent devastating flooding affecting various parts of the country. Half of those killed, 33, have been in Nairobi, where poor drainage has been a major factor, along with the obstruction of rivers and waterways caused by unregulated development. President William Ruto on Sunday said authorities were working to clear blocked drainage systems, but residents say they had seen no one, and the Parklands Residents Association had cleared up the debris themselves. Ruto also said emergency food supplies and medical assistance were being delivered to those affected. The flooding has not just affected Kenya. More than 100 people have been killed in neighboring Ethiopia following floods and landslides in the south of the country. Many factors contribute to flooding, but a warming atmosphere caused by climate change makes extreme rainfall more likely. Analysts say the world has already warmed by about 1.1 centigrade since the industrial era began, and temperatures will keep rising unless government around the world takes steps to cut the emissions.
Now staying in Africa and in South Africa, a former member of an elite police unit has been charged with the murder of a whistleblower who testified at a major police corruption inquiry in that country. 41-year-old Matipandile Sotoni appeared in court accused of killing Marius van der Weyden in December last year. Sotoni is accused of shooting dead Van der Meer in full view of his family in a case that caused national outrage. He has not commented on the charges. Van der Merwe, identified only as Witness D during his appearance at the inquiry, known as the Madlanga Commission, had implicated police officials in the torture and murder of a robbery suspect. In his testimony, he was seen as blowing the lead on the extent of police corruption at the local level in South Africa and led to the suspension of several of the officers he named. You're watching the AIT World News. We'll be back with more after the break. Stay with us.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, AIT_live, and AIT Livestream 1 on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
You're welcome back. The Nigerian Railway Corporation has confirmed that an, quote, avoidable train incident occurred on Monday at about 10 a.m. The incident, which happened near Asham, involved a rear locomotive and a passenger bus. In a statement by the Managing Director, Chief Executive of the NRC, Kayode Okwaifa, preliminary findings indicate that the rear locomotive made contact with the coach behind it due to a coupling issue. In a telephone conversation with AIT's transport correspondent, Onosherina Bozege, Okpaifa said some passengers sustained injuries and were taken to a nearby medical facility for treatment. He put the number of the hospitalized passengers at about 15, noting that the exact figure was still being verified. Besides this 15, Okpaifa added that some passengers remained in Kubwa in the FCT, while others arrived with the train at the Idu railway station about 10:39 a.m. That's 38 minutes behind the scheduled arrival time, after time was taken to remove the affected locomotive. The corporation confirmed no fatalities were recorded and insisted that it was no derailment. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau, the NSIB, has commenced an investigation into the incident. The Ondo State Police Command has dismissed reports that bandits were arrested at the Akure Airport, contradicting an earlier claim by the Federal Airports Authority, FAN, that suspects were apprehended around the Air Force perimeter. Addressing journalists on Monday during the show of force by security agents across the state, the Commissioner of Police in Ondo, Adebowale Lawal, described the report as false, misleading, and capable of causing unnecessary panic, insisting that no security breach occurred at the airport. The police boss clarified that the recent security operation carried out by operatives of the command was not at the airport but around Eleyowo axis of Akure, following credible intelligence from a concerned resident. The CP added that suspects were assisting kidnap gangs operating in the state and had already made useful confessional statements, aiding ongoing investigations. Lawal further assured residents that security agencies are continuing their efforts to track down other members of the criminal networks linked to the suspects already arrested.
To show the good people of Ondo State that we have occupied the space and to show them that there's that collaborative effort among the state agencies to fight crimes and criminalities in Ondo State. We are not bandits. There are two suspected logistics suppliers to all those criminals, kidnappers were arrested along Eleyowo, within Eleyowo and Luabu Aziz. The one other one was arrested at Luabu, but that was not connected to the first two, and they are presently in police custody. So they were never arrested at the airport, contrary to the press statement made by the fund management staff.
The civil defense and the Amotekun men are firmly on ground. So we want to go around both on leg, on motorcycles, on vehicles, to all the nooks and crannies. And after that, we'll go into the forest and do the phase 2 of Lewonjade. We want to drive miscreants out of the forest. We want to drive kidnappers out of the forest.
Tributes have been pouring in for former Green Eagles midfielder who was a member of the victorious 1980 African Nations Cup winning team, Henry Nwosu, who died on Saturday. The former Super Eagles captain and technical director of the Nigerian Football Federation, Augustine Eguavon, alongside a former international, Edema Fuludu, and other sports veteran journalist, ABRV, have described the late football icon as one of the finest of his generation. Speaking to AIT in Yenagoa, they described the Imo State-born footballer as skillful, dedicated, and passionate, noting that he gave his best while representing both his club and the national team.
I was 22 years old when I played with him, the AFCON Maroc 88. And if there was VAR, we were African champions. If you go look at the videos, have you seen the videos? So he scored a very good goal. You know, I won 1-0, but unfortunately, there was no VAR, so that goal wasn't taken. And also, I also had a positive effect in my career. But I was privileged to play with him at one point, and he was somebody who was loved by Nigerians because of his artistry in the field of play. You see him very wants to play, you know that it's a bundle of skill. That was why at 17, he played for the national team.
From his 1980, when he made his debut as a member of the African Nations Cup winning team, up to some of his last games I remember Maroc 88. He was one of the best players. His presence in the national team at that time also made way for so many other younger players. They saw Enwonsu's presence as an encouragement, an inspiration, and saw themselves as potential members of the senior national team, and they worked hard to attain great heights because of Enwonsu.
Enwonsu died at the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital in Ikeja. He was age 62. And before we wrap up the bulletin, let's tell you that the Nigerian cabinet has a new member. This follows President Bola Tinubu's swearing in of Taiwo Oyedele as the new Minister of State for Finance. Oyedele's appointment follows a recent cabinet adjustment in which the former Minister of State for Finance, Doris Uzoka-Nite, was redeployed to the Ministry of Budget and National Planning. Oyedele served as the chair of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms set up by President Bola Tinubu to administer and rejig Nigeria's tax system. He is from Akoko in Ondo State, and before entering public service, he spent 22 years with the global financial professionals organization, PricewaterhouseCoopers, where he rose to become a partner and the African tax lead. That's it on the AIT World News. I am Shola Jaisimi. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be with you at 8 during the news hour.
AIT.